Hey, I've been hearing about tariffs everywhere, like how they might have caused that big crypto crash after Trump got elected on November 5th, 2024. But honestly, what even are tariffs? They sound super boring, like some old tax thing. Why should I care about them at all?
Oh, tariffs aren't as dull as they seem, especially when they mess with stuff like your favorite video games or the price of sneakers. Think of a tariff like an extra fee a country slaps on goods coming in from other places. It's basically a tax on imports, paid by the companies bringing those things in. For example, if a toy made in another country gets hit with a tariff, the company might have to pay more to bring it here, and then they pass that cost on to you when you buy it at the store.
Okay, so it's like a border tax, but why not just call it that? And if it's boring, how does it connect to exciting stuff like crypto dropping?
Yeah, border tax is a good way to picture it. Imagine a toll booth at the country's edge, but for trucks full of phones or clothes instead of cars. Countries use tariffs to protect their own factories and workers. Say, if we make cars here, a tariff on foreign cars makes them pricier, so people might buy the local ones instead. That could save jobs in those factories. But here's the flip side. It raises prices for everyone. Remember when you wanted that new phone last year? If tariffs go up on electronics from overseas, that phone could cost you an extra $50 or more.
Whoa, that hits home. So it's protecting jobs but making my stuff more expensive? Sounds like a trade-off. But why care if I'm not buying imported stuff all the time?
Exactly. It's all about that balance. Let me share a quick story from my uncle. He worked at a steel mill back in the day. When the U.S. put tariffs on cheap steel from abroad in the early 2000s, his job got safer because local steel became more competitive. Fewer imports meant more work for folks like him. But then, companies that use steel to build bikes or cars had to pay more. So those prices went up too. It's not boring when it affects your wallet or even the games you play online, right? Tariffs ripple out and touch everyday life.
I get that now. Protecting industries makes sense for jobs. But does it always work that way, or are there times it backfires?
Great question. It doesn't always pan out perfectly. Sometimes tariffs help one group but hurt another. For instance, if we tariff imported fruits, local farmers might thrive. But your grocery bill climbs, and maybe some stores lose business. The key fact is there are tools governments use to shape trade. They can protect new industries that are just starting up, like giving them a shield until they're strong enough to compete globally. But yeah, consumer prices often rise because importers pass on the tax. It's like adding a layer of cost that wasn't there before.
Okay, that explains why my snacks from other countries might cost more. But tariffs sound like they're mostly about shielding home teams. Is that the only reason?
Not the only one, but it's a biggie. Picture this analogy. Tariffs are like a goalie in soccer, blocking shots from opposing teams so your side can score. They protect domestic industries from being undercut by cheaper foreign goods, which might be made with lower wages or fewer rules. This can keep factories open and people employed. On the price side, studies show that during the 2018-2019 trade tensions, U.S. tariffs on washing machines made them 12% more expensive on average. That's real money out of pockets. So caring about tariffs means understanding why your online shopping cart totals more sometimes.
Yeah, I remember hearing about those washing machine prices jumping. So it's not just boring paperwork, it's about real jobs and costs. But if they're protecting us, why do some people hate them?
People hate them because of those higher prices, and sometimes they spark fights between countries. But let's tie it back. Tariffs aren't random, they're calculated moves. They raise money for the government too, like an extra revenue stream from trade. In 2023, the U.S. collected about $80 billion from tariffs alone. That's cash for roads or schools. And for consumers, it might push you to buy local, which could be better quality or support your community. But if something's only made abroad, you're stuck paying more.
80 billion? That's huge. So it's like the government getting paid to guard our industries. I see why it's worth caring about now, especially with how it shook up crypto recently.
Totally. And that crypto link shows how tariffs echo far beyond just goods. But before we dive into that, Think about a time you chose a cheaper knockoff online. Tariffs could make that choice tougher by bumping up the import price, encouraging local makers. It protects, but at a cost. Ever wonder what pushes countries to actually pull the trigger on these?
Yeah, like there must be specific reasons they decide to add these extra costs, right? It can't just be for fun.
Nope, definitely not for fun, though some politicians might make it sound that way in speeches. Countries slap on tariffs for a few smart reasons, like boosting their own jobs and keeping things fair in the global game. Take promoting local jobs. If a bunch of cheap shirts flood in from somewhere else, local shirt makers might shut down, leaving folks out of work. A tariff hikes the price of those imports, giving home teams a fighting chance to sell more and hire more people. It's like putting training wheels on your bike to help you balance until you're ready to ride fast on your own.
That makes sense for jobs, but doesn't it just make everything pricier? Like, why not let the cheap stuff in and save money?
You're spot on. That's a common knock against them, how they pump up prices. But think of it this way. Without tariffs, some industries could vanish entirely, and then you'd have no local options at all. Countries use them to protect key sectors, especially ones that are vital for the economy or even national security. For example, back in the 1980s, the U.S. put tariffs on Japanese motorcycles to help Harley-Davidson stay afloat. It worked. Harley bounced back, kept factories humming, and saved thousands of jobs in places like Wisconsin. Sure, bike prices ticked up a bit, but it meant more steady paychecks for families. The idea is to nurture homegrown businesses so they don't get steamrolled by giants abroad.
Okay, so it's not just about money. It's like saving the whole team. But what if another country is cheating or something? Do tariffs fix that?
Exactly, and that's another big reason, retaliation against unfair trade. Imagine if one country dumps super cheap goods here because they're subsidizing their factories or ignoring worker rights. Tariffs act like a comeback punch to level the field. They say, hey, if you're not playing fair, we'll make your stuff cost more until you do. This helps correct trade imbalances where one side exports way more than it imports, which can hurt the economy over time. A real-world case? In 2018, the U.S. hit China with tariffs on steel and aluminum because China was overproducing and selling below cost, flooding markets. It was a way to push back and encourage fairer deals, even if it meant short-term price hikes on things like cans or cars.
So it's like standing up to a bully in the playground. I get why that could be necessary, but does it always lead to fights between countries?
It can spark some tension, yeah, like trade wars where countries volley tariffs back and forth. But on the flip side, it often leads to negotiations and better agreements. Another key reason is generating cash for the government. Tariffs are basically a tax collected at the border, and that money funds public stuff. In 2023, like I mentioned before, the U.S. raked in around $80 billion from them. That's not pocket change. It helps pay for schools, roads, or even disaster relief. Picture it as a lemonade stand fee. If you're selling lemonade from out of town, you pay a bit extra to set up, and that fee goes to fixing the neighborhood park.
Whoa, so it's multitasking, protecting jobs, fighting unfairness, and filling government piggy banks. But if they're so useful, why do they get blamed for making life expensive? Like, is there a way they don't jack up costs?
They almost always do bump costs, at least initially, because importers pass the tax on to buyers. But some argue the long-term wins outweigh that, like stronger local economies leading to more jobs and maybe even lower prices down the road as industries grow efficient. Still, it's not perfect. Remember my uncle's steel mill story? Those tariffs helped him, but companies buying steel griped about higher costs, which trickled into pricier appliances. Countries weigh that carefully. For newer twists, think about how tariffs can push innovation too. When imports get pricey, local inventors step up with better, cheaper alternatives. It's like how solar panels got a boost in some places after tariffs on foreign ones.
Yeah, innovation sounds cool. So even if prices rise, it might spark new ideas. But does this retaliation stuff ever backfire, like hurting your own side more?
Oh, it can, for sure. If a trade war escalates, exports from your country might face tariffs too, hurting farmers or tech companies selling abroad. That's why it's a calculated risk. Governments study the numbers, things like how many jobs are at stake versus the price increases. In the 2024 context, with Trump's election on November 5th, his talk of broad tariffs on imports from places like China and Mexico was seen as a way to retaliate against trade deficits and bring manufacturing back home. It aimed to promote U.S. jobs in cars or tech, but critics worried it'd spike inflation. The key is balance. Use tariffs to fix imbalances without overdoing it.
All right, I'm seeing the why now. It's strategic, not random. But man, if they mess with prices so much, how does that hit the stuff I actually buy every day?
Oh, it hits your daily buys in ways you might not even notice at first. But once you do, it's like spotting hidden fees on your phone bill. Tariffs bump up the cost of imported goods. So stuff like your morning cereal from abroad or that new hoodie shipped from overseas could end up pricier on the shelf. The company importing it pays the tariff tax, but they usually pass most of that extra cost right to you, the buyer. For example, if a tariff adds 10% to the price of imported bananas, your grocery store might charge an extra quarter per bunch to cover it. Over time, that adds up in your cart.
Whoa, even bananas? I thought tariffs were for big stuff like cars, so my snacks could cost more just because they're from somewhere else?
Yep, even the little things, bananas, chocolate, you name it. It's not just cars or tech. Tariffs can target any import to protect similar local products. Think about your phone. A lot of parts come from places like China or Vietnam. If tariffs go on those, the final price at the store jumps. Back in 2018, when the U.S. added tariffs on Chinese electronics, smartphone prices rose by about 5 to 10% on average for some models. That means instead of dropping $200 on a new case or charger, you might pay $220. It forces you to think twice about what you grab, maybe skipping that impulse buy.
That sucks for my budget. But does it ever make me choose better stuff, like local brands?
Absolutely, and that's where it can help some folks. Tariffs nudge you toward local alternatives, which might be just as good or even better. Say tariffs make imported jeans more expensive. Suddenly, those made in the USA pairs look like a steal. This boosts local businesses, keeping money in your community and creating jobs nearby. I remember a buddy of mine who switched to buying American-made sneakers after tariffs hiked prices on foreign ones in the late 2010s. He ended up loving the quality and felt good supporting workers in his state. But yeah, if there's no strong local option, you're just paying more without much choice.
So it's like a push to shop local. But what if I really want the imported version? Does it hurt jobs somewhere else?
It can shift jobs around, for sure. On the plus side, tariffs might create more work in local factories as demand for their stuff rises. Like if we tariff foreign toys, U.S. toy makers could hire more people to meet the need, leading to job growth in places like Ohio or California. But the downside? Higher prices might mean you buy less overall, which could slow down stores or even cause layoffs in retail if sales drop. It's a ripple effect. Helps one area, tweaks another. During the 2018-2019 trade spats, some studies showed U.S. manufacturing jobs ticked up by about 1 to 2% in protected sectors, but consumer spending on those goods dipped because of the cost.
Okay, job shifts make sense. So prices go up, but it might mean more work for people here. Is that worth it for everyday stuff like food or clothes?
It depends on who you ask, but yeah, for many, the job boost outweighs the price hike, especially if it keeps communities thriving. Picture your weekly grocery run. Tariffs on imported cheese could make that block of cheddar from France cost $2 more, but it might help dairy farmers in Wisconsin sell more of theirs. Over a year, you might spend an extra $50 on food, but that supports local farms and reduces reliance on faraway suppliers. Of course, if you're on a tight budget, that extra cost stings. And here's a fun fact. Sometimes tariffs lead to creative workarounds, like companies moving production to avoid them, which can create jobs in new spots.
Creative workarounds? Like what? Building factories here instead?
Exactly. Some companies shift operations to dodge tariffs, bringing jobs home or to friendlier countries. For instance, after tariffs on Chinese goods in the 2020s, firms like Apple started making more parts in India or Vietnam, which shook up global supply chains but added manufacturing gigs there. Back home, it meant more assembly jobs in the U.S. too. But for your daily buys, it could stabilize prices long term by diversifying where stuff comes from. Still, short term, you feel the pinch. Think about video games. If consoles or parts get tariffed, that new game system might jump from $300 to $350, making you wait or pick a cheaper hobby.
Yeah, I'd hate paying more for games. So overall, it's a mix. Higher prices, but maybe more local jobs and options. Does this ever cause bigger problems, like making everything too expensive for everyone?
It can snowball into inflation if tariffs are widespread, where prices creep up across the board. But it helps by encouraging competition and innovation in local markets. Remember, not all tariffs hit every purchase. Some are targeted, so your local apple stays the same price while the imported one rises. The key is they change what you see on shelves, more made here labels, perhaps fewer cheap imports. In the end, it affects choices, like opting for a thrift store find over a new import to save cash.
Got it. So my shopping habits might change without me even realizing why. But wait, if tariffs mess with prices and jobs like this, how on earth does that connect to something wild like crypto prices tanking?
The crypto connection. That's where tariffs show their wild side, reaching into digital worlds you wouldn't expect. Crypto isn't about physical goods like bananas or phones, but it's super sensitive to big economic shakes, like tariff threats. When Donald Trump won the election on November 5th, 2024, he started talking tough about slapping new tariffs on imports from countries like China and Mexico. Investors freaked out because tariffs can mess with global trade, slow down economies, and create uncertainty. That fear hit crypto hard, causing prices to drop sharply right after, with Bitcoin falling over 10% in a few days as people sold off in panic.
Wait, but crypto's just digital money, right? How does a tax on real stuff like imports make its value crash? That seems disconnected.
It's all linked through the bigger picture of money and markets. Think of crypto like a skittish cat that jumps at any loud noise in the house. Tariffs aren't directly on crypto, but the threats create ripples. Trump's plans included up to 60% tariffs on Chinese goods and 25% on Mexican imports, aiming to bring jobs back to the U.S. But that kind of talk scares investors because it could spark trade wars, higher inflation, and slower global growth. Crypto thrives on optimism and easy money flow. When uncertainty hits, like fears of disrupted supply chains for tech that powers mining or trading, people pull out fast. Right after the election, the whole market dipped, with Ethereum and others tumbling too, as traders worried about a stronger dollar and tighter regulations under Trump.
Okay, so it's the fear factor? Like everyone panics and sells, driving prices down? But why crypto specifically? Stocks crash sometimes too.
Spot on. The panic sell-off is key, and crypto's extra volatile because it's not backed by governments or physical assets like stocks often are. It's like a roller coaster without safety bars. In this case, tariff threats signaled potential chaos in international trade, which crypto hates because so much of it relies on global networks. For example, a lot of Bitcoin mining happens in places like China, and if tariffs escalate into bans or restrictions, that could hike energy costs or limit hardware imports. Post-election on November 6 and 7, 2024, the crypto market lost about $300 billion in value overnight as sentiment soured. Investors thought if trade gets messy, economies slow, and risky bets like crypto look less appealing. It's not the tariffs themselves crashing it, but the shadow of what they might bring.
That mining angle makes sense. Stuff from China getting pricier could hurt the whole setup. But did it really crash just from threats, or was there more going on?
Mostly the threats, amplified by the surprise of the election outcome. Trump had campaigned on America First policies, including those tariffs to fix what he called unfair trade deals. When he won, markets reacted instantly, crypto especially, because it's 24/7 and full of speculators who overreact to news. Remember, crypto's tied to broader sentiment. If global trade sentiment tanks, so does confidence in borderless digital assets. A quick anecdote. My cousin, who's into trading altcoins, watched his portfolio drop 15% that week. He said it felt like the 2018 trade war vibes all over again, where similar tariff talks with China led to a crypto winter. But this time, it bounced back a bit as people digested the news, though the initial plunge was real and tied to that uncertainty.
Whoa, so it's like a chain reaction. Tariff talk scares the world economy, and crypto feels it first because it's so jumpy. Does that mean every time a politician mentions tariffs, I should watch my crypto app?
Pretty much, yeah. It's that interconnected. But it's not every mention. It's the big, credible threats like Trump's, which could actually happen. They affect global trade sentiment by making companies hesitant to invest or expand, which trickles into crypto as a risk-off asset. People flock to safer things like bonds instead. In 2024, with the election on November 5, the threats were fresh and bold, promising to renegotiate deals like USMCA. That uncertainty alone caused the crash. But interestingly, some crypto folks later saw upside, thinking Trump's pro-business stance might ease regs. Still, the immediate hit was from the trade fear. Prices stabilized after a week or so, but it showed how tariffs echo into unexpected places.
Yeah, I get it now. So even though crypto isn't a good being imported, the overall vibe of trade wars and economic shakes makes investors nervous, tanking values. That's wild how something old school like tariffs zaps modern stuff like Bitcoin.
Exactly. It's a reminder that finance is one big web. Pull one thread like tariffs, and the whole thing vibrates, even in crypto land. By understanding this, you're ahead of the game, spotting how policy news can move your money. And hey, next time you hear tariff buzz, you'll know it's not just about pricier sneakers. It could ripple to your digital wallet too.
Totally. That ties everything together. I feel like I really understand tariffs now, from the basics to how they shook crypto in 2024. No more questions. It's all clicking. Thanks for breaking it down like that.